if I may just move on to from 两岸关系 to 两岸三地. Right? In the last 100 years, mainland China, Hong Kong, and Taiwan each had their own unique political development. In the case of China, there was Dr. Sun Yat-sen's revolution, followed by Asia's first republic, followed by communist rule, followed by opening up. In the case of Hong Kong, there was British rule, followed by 一国两制. In the case of Taiwan, Dutch, Portuguese, followed by Japanese occupation, followed by KMT, followed by American Western-style democracy. So, do you see the political path of the three places influence one another? And do you see the path converging at some time? And what might be that convergence?
I don't see either Hong Kong or Taiwan influencing the path of China. China is 1.3 million people. It has a destiny of its own. It has a certain momentum of its own. It will leave Hong Kong to be slightly different because they promised it for 50 years. It doesn't cost them anything. They will also probably leave Taiwan slightly different, but they're not going to change because of Taiwan and Hong Kong becoming part of China. What's the point of it? You cannot change a small island, in the case of Hong Kong, 6-7 million, in the case of Taiwan, 20-something million, cannot change 1.3 billion Chinese.
So a unified China is a matter of time?
I believe so.
Would that be 10, 20, 30 years perhaps?
I cannot say, but I think if I were China, I'd be patient. It's bound to happen. You use force, you're killing your own Chinese. I mean, that will be a very deep blow to Chinese people and to relations between Taiwan and China subsequently. So I don't think it is in China's interest to use force. The economics will resolve the two problems of independence or integration.
Thank you. I think that was a very insightful view and put in a very succinct and very direct fashion for all of us. I've taken up 30 minutes already, and I do have one last question which I would like to pose. And that is, Mr. Lee, you are probably Singapore's most prolific writer in recent years, and with a number of books to your name. And the most recent one, The Hard Truth, that was launched 9 months ago, and the Chinese edition, 硬道理, was launched very recently. We understand that you have another book coming up very soon, and it's on bilingualism and Singapore's journey. And you have said the policy of bilingualism is one of the toughest that you've ever had to implement here in Singapore. Can you share with us why do you choose to write this book?
Well, because I think it is useful for the present generation to know how strongly the Chinese community felt about the language, and they refused to have Chinese become the second language. Because once you have bilingualism, English must become the first language, because we are multiracial with Malays, Indians, and others, and to link up with the rest of the world. So they did not want that. They wanted Chinese to be on equal terms as a first language with English, which was not possible. So it took a long time for them to realize that we are multiracial. Therefore, Chinese can never be the common language. It can only be the common language for the Chinese. And secondly, if we choose Chinese, our economy will not flourish, because the rest of the world either the first or the second language is English. And China cannot give us the economy that we now have. Even a growing China, Jueqi, cannot give us this economy. It's the English language that gives us this access to the world.
So if there is one advice that you want to give Singaporeans, particularly young Singaporeans, on bilingualism, what would that advice be?
Everybody knows you've got to do English, otherwise you won't get on in Singapore. You won't get on with the international companies and so on. But if you give up Chinese, you have lost something very valuable. And you mustn't give it up. I've spent a whole lifetime catching up with my Chinese because my first language was English, second language was Malay, third language was Fujian, fourth language was Huayu. Now I had to...
You learn Japanese too?
Sorry?
You learn Japanese as well?
I learned Japanese during Japanese occupation. That's 3.5 years lost. But it is important that we know ourselves and that we understand the written language and the spoken language.
Thank you. Well, I beg your indulgence before I declare the floor open with one final question, and that is, Mr. Deng Xiaoping, at the age of 88, went on this famous southern tour. He intervened and put China's reform back on track. Last month, you celebrated your 88th birthday. Are there things that you have not accomplished for Singapore that you still want to accomplish?
No, there are so many more things to be done, but I think it's for a younger generation to persuade a younger generation of leaders to persuade a younger generation of people to take that course forward. Our future depends upon a well-educated population. We have no natural resources. We need to have people with knowledge and with skills. So English is a must, and Chinese is also a must, because if you haven't got that, you will not have the self-confidence that you should have as a Chinese, and secondly, you cannot take advantage of the rise of China. And Chinese will go out into the region, and we can be their pathfinders, apart from going there and doing business. So it's absolutely essential that we keep speaking Chinese. I am worried that more and more families are speaking English because they want their children to learn English. I think it's a mistake. They will learn English in school anyway, and they should keep up their Mandarin at home so that the child will naturally speak Mandarin and find it easy in school. Whereas in English, there's no trouble. He will learn it anyway. So if I have a choice, I would speak to my grandchildren in Chinese and leave the English to the schools.
Well, Mr. Lee, thank you very much for sharing your wisdom and your insights and your valuable thoughts with us this evening. 各位女士、各位先生，李光耀先生。